Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Ghoul Friend Hour. I'm your host, Morgan Feza, and today we have a guest I'm super excited to have on. We have Daryl Marston. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's how you say it.
All right. I always got to make sure because I butcher last names. But he is an author. He is a co-lead investigator for the Ghost Hunters. He has, if and correct me if any of this is wrong, but Breaking Paranormal.
Breaking Parent, yeah, that was my old team that I started. Yeah.
Okay. And then the book that he is the author of is The Horrors of the House of Wills, which is notoriously haunted, whatever you want to call it, but it's a great book, so we'll get into that. But before I digress, I'm going to pass the torch to you and let you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, guys, I mean, if you don't know me by now, my name is Daryl Marston. I've been a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, however you want to say it, for the last almost 19 years now, going on 20 years. And I am from Middletown, Delaware, which a lot of people already know. And I got into this by complete accident, which people don't understand or don't realize. I was never a paranormal buff or anything like that. I actually, back in 2005, got invited to a quote unquote Halloween event at a place called Fort Delaware here in Delaware. I went there actually with my mom, who had no one to go with. I'm not sure if she won the tickets or bought the tickets at the time, but she had no one to go with her. So my stepsister and myself went, and I came away from that location, my first ever investigation. It was only maybe 3 or 4 hours long. I came away from that as a complete believer in the paranormal because I actually witnessed a apparition. I should say half body apparition. And people ask, well, what do you mean half body? Well, when I say half body, I could always see from the chest up. I saw no lower portion of the body. So it was just from basically the shoulders up. I'll never forget. I'm the only one who saw it at the time because I was the only one pointing in that direction. There was 5 of us down in this one section of Fort Delaware. And what I saw was a man standing there in the hallway staring back at us. At first, it didn't compute with me that I wasn't seeing the lower half of him. At first, I thought maybe he was a reenactor or something of that nature because he was just standing there staring. And then I noticed he didn't have a lower portion of his body. And what I saw was a man with shoulder length, maybe a little bit longer, scraggly hair, and a very disheveled beard. And I remember seeing, and what really stuck out to me was I could see debris in his beard, like dirt or like dried up leaves or something. Like he looked like he was probably hadn't bathed in a year, maybe longer.
Oh my gosh.
He looked very distraught, emaciated. His face was emaciated, but I only saw him for maybe 9 or 10 seconds. And what really blew my mind was he kind of shrunk and it looked like something almost pulled him backwards. And he shrunk into a ball and was gone.
Wow.
I didn't say anything at the time because I didn't want anybody to think I was crazy because I'd never experienced anything like that. So I basically, I walked away from it that night after that, like knowing that somehow, some way I wanted to recreate what I had seen. And so I started reading books. Like, I think I remember back in 2005, the internet wasn't huge like it is now. So it wasn't like you could just go on social media and find stuff. So yeah, you're searching the internet for paranormal stuff and paranormal videos. And I started like hitting all the bookstores like Barnes and Noble and places like that to buy books on the paranormal. And that's what I did. And next thing I knew, I was out investigating on my own. I didn't have a team. I didn't join a team. I knew nothing about that. I didn't know there's such thing as these paranormal teams. I didn't know the shows were, just starting up. They'd only been out for a couple of years, like Ghost Hunters, and I think Ghost Adventures may have been just starting up back then. And that was the only things on TV to watch when it came to paranormal compared to today, where it's on every channel almost. So I started just doing my own thing, and it built from there. I started dating my wife a couple years after that, and she never did it before, but she was really into it. She thought it was interesting, so she started investigating with me, and we would just do like locations in Delaware. We would travel to like Gettysburg a lot, do a lot of the places in Gettysburg, which is only about 2 hours from me, and that's how I grew. And then around 2011. I decided I wanted to start my own team, kind of expand a little bit and start reaching out to other states. So I'd met some people that I've been talking to through social media up in Ohio. And they became good friends of mine, Greg and Steph. And grabbed a friend of mine from Delaware here, and we started investigating. We started a team called Breaking Paranormal, and that grew into a podcast that became the American Ghost Hunter Show. That the first year or so kind of starved. It was, didn't have a lot of views or anything. We were on YouTube, and then we kind of branched out and started doing Facebook Lives through a company called Paranormal Warehouse. And Paranormal Warehouse is where it grew. It really blew up there, and that's where Ghost Hunters found me, the producers from Ghost Hunters. And next thing I know, I'm on Ghost Hunters and traveling the country investigating. That's where I'm at now.
Yes, and we're so happy that you are, because I mean, I've been a longtime fan of Ghost Hunters. I just love, especially if you can't travel yourself, we live vicariously through you. And I speak on behalf of all my spooky peeps. We like to see the locations that you do. And if I remember correctly, because I do feel like I had watched a couple lives, you would do like you would do like live investigations, right? On Facebook Live?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not all the time. We basically did where we started out as just basically a talk show, kind of like we're doing here. We would have paranormal celebrities on there, and some people that no one knew, authors and things of that nature. And it was more like a comedy act more than anything. The show, because my two of my co-hosts were from England, so the American Ghost Show was like, okay, well, they're from England, but I'm American. And then my other co-host, Greg, was an American. So we just ran with it. And it really built up its own community, which was really cool to watch, because we would go from having, like, when we first started out, maybe a week, 100 people would watch. And the first night on Paranormal Warehouse, it jumped up to where we were having 1,800 people watching live at a time. And then it grew all the way from that about a year or two later, where it grew up to, we were having anywhere from 16 to 20,000 people watching live, which was, it's crazy. And that's live. And you would have, you have the chat line going, where I'd actually have to have people reading the chat line to me, because I couldn't keep up with it. You're trying to answer questions, and it was impossible to do. But right during the heyday of all that, when Ghost Hunters reached out to me and were like, hey, we would like to, they didn't even tell me it was Ghost Hunters this time. I just got I remember getting a phone call from a producer named Nick out of LA, from Pilgrim. And he was like, hey, we'd like to interview you for a TV show. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And yeah, I'm like, okay, yeah. And because at the time it was crazy, I was bashing the shows like left and right on my show. I was like, because at that point, probably when I went to Ghost Hunters, I hadn't watched a paranormal show in at least 5 years, because I was just like, they're doing all the same places. They're, it's like one show does Eastern States this week, and the next one's the Eastern States this week, or they're at West Virginia State Penitentiary, and it kept, like, you kept seeing the same crap, and like you would and you got tired of it, and like, so I walked away from it as it was just, I was doing my thing, and everything else I was like oblivious to. And so yeah, and I sat there and I told people for a long, I'll never do a paranormal show, blah blah blah, not thinking that I was going to be on one. And never say never.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, never say never, because it happened, and it happened really fast when it happened. It was like, I'm getting calls and doing Skype and Zoom interviews with these producers. Next thing I know, I'm being flown out to LA to sign contracts. And next thing I know, a couple weeks later, I'm on the road filming for weeks at a time. So yeah, it happened very fast when it did.
Yeah. And so how did you have kids? Do you have kids?
Yes, I have 5. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, you got a big old household there.
Yes. Well, most of them are grown now. The youngest is 11. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so but how did you I know this may not be like the typical question, but how did you balance, such a drastic change overnight and like
Um, well, I
family?
definitely had to sit down with my wife with it, and make sure it was okay with her because she had a full-time job at the time. She worked for Bank of America, and she wasn't happy with her job anyway. And being that I was going to be on the road, and I was basically, not to throw this out there, but I was basically making what 2 or 3 people make, from
Okay,
one
yeah.
household. So she didn't have to work it. She could quit her job
Yeah.
at that point, just be a stay-at-home mom. So that's where it was easier for her to stay home because
Yeah.
I'm not Tristan. Aaron at the time was when I went on Ghost Hunters. He was 7 or 8. So he was he's very young. And so it was nice for her to be able to stay home and get him on and off the bus and do all the schoolwork and stuff. And yeah, so it worked out fine.
Oh,
It was just a way,
good.
I think the hard part was just being away for so long because you think, okay, you're
Yeah.
filming a TV show. You don't think about this when I hear all these people saying I go to these events and stuff and I do these appearances and people, I love to be on a show. You like to be on a show until you're on a show because if you have a family, you're literally away for sometimes 3 or 4 weeks at a time. Like you don't
Yeah.
see them. You're flying out to one location week after week. Like you'll be say in California this week. The next week you'll be in Maine. The week after that you're in Texas. The week after that you're in Alaska. And
Yeah.
it's like you're living out of a suitcase. You're jumping from one plane to the next, from one car to the next, driving it, flying it, whatever. So the people you're on the show with and the production company who's out there with you, they become your like second family. So then you go back to your real family, and you miss them dearly. You really do. It's hard. Yeah. So when you get home, you don't want to leave. You're home,
Yeah.
you're vegging. And so you're vegging for a week or two until you fly out again, and it
Yeah.
flies by. It's very quick. Yeah.
That's why I had to ask that because I know like it's got to be because obviously you're very well known. And I know some people don't like the term famous, but you're very well known in the supernatural community.
Right.
And I know that with that, it comes with a price. And so it's hard, one, the investigations from what I've heard just from talking to people are absolutely exhausting. But then to be doing that kind of back to back to back and be hopping, on flights and driving and,
Yeah.
that, I mean, that has to take a toll. So I'm always just curious, I love that you're so down to earth. You just seem very well balanced, which is nice because I feel like some people, when they get to a certain level, there is a sense of
Yeah. Yeah.
big headedness. I'm like trying to find the right word.
No,
And
you're right. You're right.
so
I see
it's
it. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind of being able to see, how well balanced you are. It's just curiosity as to how you were able to balance that. And so, I mean, I'm sure that was a big decision for you guys to make.
Well, yeah, and people are also don't realize too. It's like they think on these TV shows, like, okay, oh, they start filming when it gets dark, and when it's in 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, they're out the door. No, we were filming like 15, 16 hour days.
Yeah.
A light day to us was 12 hours, and that would be like, oh my god, it's only 12 hours a day. We get to go back to the hotel and have dinner and have drinks. Oh my god, what are we going to do with ourselves? But yeah, I mean, we were literally, I mean, we would be on site, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and we wouldn't leave until, almost 6 a.m. the next day. And that was
Wow.
for a week straight. You did that. And then you have one day off. And then the next day was travel day. So you'd be traveling to wherever, like on Sunday, you'd be traveling to wherever you're going next. So yeah,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I give you
it's
kudos
great.
because I'm
Yeah.
lucky if I make it past like 9 p.m. at night. Like I'm like,
I'm
I
like, yeah,
thought,
same here. Yeah, I mean, these days I'm just like, oh my god, I just want to pass out at 10 o'clock at night. But Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's a crazy life. It really is. You God bless the people who do it all the time. And I tell you, it's kudos it's to anybody who does it, because I know the life. I've been there. I've done it. I still do it to an extent these days with my travel, with the events and appearances and stuff. And I tell you, it can be rough. It really can.
And since you kind of touched on events, I'm going to kind of like segue a little bit, because I had just kind of started, when I started this podcast, I started looking into like attending more like paracons and things of that sort,
Yeah.
because like I just have really kind of just come out of like my spiritual box, so to say,
Mm.
and I really am eager to learn a lot about the supernatural and dive into different cultures and different religions. And I guess kind of where I'm going is, do you have a favorite, like a paranormal conference or just a conference in general that you think is super worth attending, that has like a lot of great vendors and speakers?
I mean, I've done so many, but honestly, and I'm not gonna, I won't stand here and knock anybody, but I like doing my private events, the ones like companies hire me out for, because you have more one-on-one with the community,
Okay.
um, and you can showcase yourself. You go to some of these bigger events where you're just a number and you're just sitting at a table all day, and as people come and go, I don't know if you're going to really learn a lot. You might
Okay.
get you honestly, you might get this more discouraged by meeting some of the other people. I'm
Okay.
just
Okay.
saying,
No, that's good. I like the transparency.
yeah, it can be. Uh, at my level, though, it's just like, you're there, company, hires you to come out and do these things. You do your thing, you sign autographs, blah blah blah, and you're out the door. But you watch some of the vendors. Some of them do very well, but it's such a rat race, and I quite honestly, sticking to yourself and being yourself and doing your own thing is best in this business.
Okay.
If you understand what I mean,
Yep.
because there's a lot of people out there who want to, they want to discourage, they want to beat up on other people, and they want to bully them. And it's hard to watch sometimes. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. Very dog eat dog, which I mean, that sucks.
Yeah. Well, that's in everything in life. I mean, in
Yeah.
every business. But I just like sometimes the paranormal community can be it can be rough. It can be
Yeah.
real rough, and to watch it and watch, the name calling and the just the finger pointing and stuff. Watching it from afar, just like, wow. I'm just so
Yeah.
glad when I was doing it at that level. I didn't like. I had no idea of anybody else existing except for me. Like I
Yeah. Do
just
you think there was more of a sense of community?
I think it's I don't know. I've heard the stories. You hear from people, but like I said, when I was doing it at that level, I was like, I stuck to myself. I like all I did was investigate. Like I would rent out a property, investigate it, and then I did my show, my podcast, and it was just my world. It was
Yeah.
like a lot. What you'll see with these YouTubers that do their thing, like it's just their world. They don't care about anything else that's going on. They don't care about what Joe Schmo over here is doing or this guy's doing. They just do their own thing, and they have their own community. They have their own followers, and that's what's so great about that. Just staying to yourself, being your own person, not trying. And I'm not saying not try to branch out and make your contacts or anything like that. But it's just you got to watch the people you make contact with. You really got
Mhm.
to vet, really do. You got to kind of like stand back and watch for a while before you approach some of these people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. One of my one of my biggest worries actually when I started the podcast was kind of nervous, because you always hear the saying, never meet your idols.
Yeah.
And like from a young age, I have been obsessed with ghost shows. I've been obsessed with just like all the supernatural community kind of pioneers. So
Yeah.
it's like, like I always get nervous when somebody says, yeah, like I'll be on the podcast, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope they're like really nice, or I hope it's not awkward. Like, so it's really nerve-wracking because I feel like you never really know what to expect.
Yeah, you
But
don't. You don't. I think that when I was doing the podcast, the first like big name person I had on my show who reached out to me was Nick Groff, and
really,
I'll always give Groff. I hear people just you always hear the shit. Like I always give him all the credit in the world because he took the time out of his schedule, his busy schedule, to come on my podcast and to talk. And he was awesome. He was amazing. And I've had other people like Katrina and things like that. They were on my show. They were all amazing. Like all the people I had on my show were, and I'm still friends with a lot of these people. And it's you'll see a lot of the people on TV. People are the more down to earth because they have nothing to prove.
yeah.
They have
And
nothing to
honestly,
prove.
that's what I've been the most surprised by, because I felt like, and don't laugh at me. I mean, you can, but when you responded to me, I remember like I was in the car with my husband. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I can't believe he's like, is like agreeing to be on my podcast. And I was like, well, some of the, like I had Chris McKinnell on, I've had Ralph Sarchi on. Ralph Sarchi I was a huge fan of. And I felt like a lot of these people who I was really nervous, like I was like, they're never going to answer me. Like, I'm like, I'm
You
shooting my
never know.
shot, but,
That's why
and
I always got so many people on my show because like people would ask me like, how do you get all these great people on your show?
yeah,
You gotta reach out to them. All they can
yeah,
say, no, we're not answering you.
yeah,
Um, and that's it. I mean, nothing else can happen besides that. And I used to reach out to everybody. Like I would email, I'd find emails, or I would message them on social media or whatever. And 9 times out of 10, I always got a response back, and I always got a yes. And it was just
that's,
you have to go for what you want. You have to really reach out and go for it. And that will lead you to so many better things, and so many doors will open for you. You start doing that because you start getting a name, especially if you have a good podcast or live feed or whatever. They're going to tell other people, and then our people are like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And you start getting that following, and then everybody wants to be on your show. Like for the first year or so, it was like for me, because I did it for almost 5 years, the podcast thing, where it would struggle. Like you're just trying to get anybody on the show. I even heard Joe Rogan say this once. He was like his first year of his show, in which his show is just huge, um,
yes.
but beyond belief huge. His first year of his show, he was just taking anybody he could find to come on the show to build the show. And then after that, it's like it starts leveling out, and it got to the point with me, and I can't speak for everybody, but for myself, where people started reaching out to me where I was booked out almost 2 years in advance, a year and a half to 2 years in advance, because people
Wow.
wanted to get on the show. And it leveled itself out. I wasn't contacting anybody. Like I would say, hey, yeah, I'd love to have your show, but I can't have you until April of next year or
Yeah.
whatever. And that's what will happen. You just keep doing what you're doing, and next thing you know, because I know you're still pretty new at this.
Yeah.
But you got a good head on your shoulders, it seems. So it seems like you're gonna contact people for the next year or so, but I guarantee after that, once they start seeing the people you got on your show, it'll start building itself, and your community will build around it, and people will start reaching out to you to be on your show. Yeah.
That makes me feel better. I'm like, that was definitely the little inspirational kind of speech that I needed today, because I feel like I've been plugging away, and I've, every day I kind of set a goal to like reach out to at least 5 to 10 people. And I just feel like if you can break through that barrier, social media has been a great free marketing, free source of contacts. And so I'm super thankful for that.
Right.
But enough about me. I want to dig into some of your cases. So it's funny, I listened to a couple of podcasts that you were on, and just in doing my research, I wanted to talk about your book, The Horrors of the House of Wills, and kind of start there as from what I heard you say on the podcast, one of the places that like you were like, I'm not going to do that again, because it was so just nuts and just dark, I guess.
Yeah,
So I don't know if you want to kind of fill the listeners in on what that was like and what kind of
well,
inspired the book.
definitely, yeah. Because I mean, for me to sit down and write a book about it, it had to be pretty bad. Yeah, because I mean, I've been talking about this location for 7, 8 years now on different radio shows and podcasts and things of that nature. And people like after the show would hit me up like, "Hey, you should write a book about this place." And like, I'm like, whatever, whatever, whatever. And then when COVID hit, um, around 2001, or 2021, excuse me, I sat down and I started like I had time, like I'm gonna write this book. So I just one night I started writing, and next thing I know, I'm 3, 4 months into it and I'm like, I'm done the book, and like, all right, what do I do with it now? I've never, I've never authored a book. I've never, pitched a book. So I started pitching it around to different publishers, and I ended up with Llewellyn Worldwide, and which I'm very happy about because they've been very open to me and they've been very helpful. And they grabbed the book up really quick and they started doing their part of it. And but this place, House of Wills, what you understand, I went into that, I was about 8 or 9 years into investigating. So I thought at that point, like, I've seen everything, I've done everything, blah, 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 blah. And I heard about the House of Wills. I was actually in Gettysburg investigating with a couple friends that were out of that part of Ohio. We're outside of Cleveland. And they were like, hey, we investigate this location called the House of Wills in Cleveland, and it's a funeral. It's a former funeral home and all this other stuff. And they gave me the whole rundown of it. And I'm like, and the things they were telling me were like out of a movie. I'm like, there's no way, whatever. And they finally talked me into it. So about a month later, I said, okay, we're gonna go check this place out. So we went up and checked it out, and I tell you, it in so many words, it kicked my ass. I've never investigated something like that. I wasn't prepared for it. Um, I went in, maybe carrying baggage, and I shouldn't had, and it really got to me, and it started messing with my head when I was there. And it wasn't just me; it was everybody, and whoever was actually followed me home.
Oh,
And so they followed me home, which was something I never had happen before. I didn't even know that was even possible. You hear about it, but I've never had it happen at that point. And it was very dark. And it took several months to get rid of it. It was very bad. It was something, that played havoc on my life and my family's life, where I pretty much quit doing paranormal for a while. I was like,
wow.
I'll never do it again, which I lied to myself on that because I decided, 3 or 4 months after I had gotten rid of it, like I want to get back into this and fight it and not let it beat me, because at that point it had beat me. And so this place, basically, give you a little rundown of it. It was built by a 32nd degree Mason back in the 1800s. They don't know the exact date of when it was constructed. They know it was somewhere between like 1855 and 1890. I even looked back on the records to try to find an exact date. I could not find dates on when this place was actually built, but we do know the name of the architect. It's all in the book. He was a 32nd degree Mason who was an architect in the Cleveland area at that time, and he had built many, many structures there. That some of them are still standing. I think there's 27 buildings that are still standing that he had actually built. So if you know anything about the Masons and the way they design properties or locations, they build them to harness energy. And that's how this building was, basically constructed. So once it was, done, it was a German social club for many years back turn of the century. There's rumors of it being a speakeasy, which I could not find anything on it, but also that probably wouldn't be on record if it was a speakeasy, because if it was never, rated or, found, they would never have it on record anyway. It was a hospital at one point, and then around 1945, it became a funeral home. It became basically over several years, it became Cleveland's largest African American funeral home, and basically morgue. And that's where it stayed all the way up into the early 2000s, when it got shut down. It got shut down for malpractice and some other stuff. The original owner, Mr. Wills, died in 1971. That's where it gets the name, the House of Wills. His last name was Wills. It got shut down in 1970, or he passed away in 1971. He left it to his family, his kids, and over the next 30 or so years, they kind of ran it into the ground, and it was not the place it was when he ran it. So you have that. It sat for almost 10 years until a gentleman named Eric Freeman bought it around 2011, 2012. He, for people who don't know, and this is all public knowledge, I'm not saying anything that he's, the public's not aware of, and he's open to it. I've had to have meetings with him about it, because I had to get his permission to write the book. He is the one of the head priests of the New Satanic Church of Satan. And he has done rituals in the building. And I think that's why the building is so dark. That's my opinion. That's only theory, but I'm not the only person that had these things happen to them that I wrote the book about. I've had quite a few conversations with different people who investigate the location, and they've all had the same experiences where something had followed them home, something had, tried to possess people on the team at the time it happened. And there's always been, some kind of violence or some kind of issue that happened where people will refuse to go back to this location. I know film crews won't go to this location. So it's very dark, it's unsettling, and that's why I wrote the book about it.
I mean, rightfully so. Just looking at the pictures, I think it's called the auditorium. It's that notorious picture of kind of like the dome ceiling. Just looking at it, I just feel like it just radiates like an energy to it, like just through pictures.
That's what I explain to people. Like when you walk into this property, it feels like you just walk through into water. Like it's
thick.
You feel like you're walking into a whole different realm. It doesn't even feel like it does. It feels, the way I explain the property, I don't feel like the property is haunted. I feel like the property is the haunting. The building is a living organism. That's how I explain it. That's how actually Eric Freeman explains it, the owner of the building. It feels like it's a living organism that breathes. It sucks the energy out of people, and it uses that energy to harness it for itself to try to control. And it's just such a dark feeling. It's like you feel like you're in a dream state or a nightmare state the whole time you're there, where like you literally have to leave the building, about once an hour just to ground yourself outside, because you feel like there's this presence on you, like, and it's like, okay, here's another way I can explain it to people is, if you ever go to someone's house or you walk into a room where there's just been an argument or a fight, but it's not going on as you get there, but you can still feel that energy in the room.
Cut the tension with a knife, kind of, per se.
Yes. It's the whole building is like that. The whole building, and it's not in the best neighborhood. East Cleveland, anybody knows East Cleveland, I'm not telling anything that anybody doesn't know. It's a very bad section of town. There's a lot of drive-bys and drugs and stuff that goes on there right outside the doors of that property. So you have all that. So, I explain to people outside the building is just as bad as inside the building when you go there. It's the only place I've ever been to where I heard rumors of this before I got there, but I didn't believe it. People will be walking down the street. These are people who live in the community, in the neighborhood. They'll be walking down the sidewalk and they'll cross over. I sat there and watched it. They'll cross the sidewalk, go to the other side of the street to pass the building. They won't walk directly in front of it. That's the whole community. I sat there one day for about 20 minutes, people just walking down the street, getting maybe, a couple hundred yards of the place, crossing the street just to walk the other side of the sidewalk to go past it. It's crazy. It's well known in that part of Cleveland. And there's some parts in the book that I write about where there were certain people, community leaders, that tried to actually burn the building down several years ago, where they didn't, they weren't able to do it because it's still standing, but they actually broke into the building, while Eric was in the building, and they tried to burn it down with him in it.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, so that's all in the book. It's why it's labeled paranormal horror, because it's a true story. And there's not, it's not just, your average haunting where, things are getting moved and stuff of that nature, or you're seeing things. You're having all that plus this outside influence of, the new Satanic Church of Satan. You have this outside influence of the people who try to do harm there. There's been several murders there on the property as well, just over the last 8 to 10 years. So there's a lot going on there, a lot, still to this day.
That's insane. I mean, I know, like, I don't know if you guys have really, I'm sure you have your theories about what's kind of like, I know you said the building is like living, but do you think that maybe that there's also demonic forces, maybe trapped spirits? Do you think there could possibly be a portal, or do you think it just truly is that this building is just what it is? And
I, I hate going around demonic and stuff like that, because I mean, I do believe in demons. I don't believe they're as prevalent as some of the TV shows make them out to be.
Mhm,
Uh, I feel this place is an energy that it's not human. I
mhm,
don't think ever was human. I think it's a lot of this energy has been, manifested by the rituals and things that have been going on in the building.
mhm.
Along with the spirits that were there before that, in the community, people who, died there. Like I said, it was so many different layers. It's, like an onion with these different layers of the German social club. It was a hospital. It was a speakeasy. It was, Masonic temple. It was all these different things. And then you have, the Cleveland's largest African American funeral home for 50 some years.
Yeah.
So there's so many layers, and you have the outside influences of the community, how it's, it's not the best community. It really is. It's very, there's a lot of gang related activity. There's shootings, there's drive-bys.
Kind of like the perfect feeding spot.
It
Like,
is. It's the perfect
yeah.
storm. It is. You have all, and this is one of the reasons. This was the reason for the gentleman, the community activist, I should say, who gathered his followers or his troops to come in and try to burn the property down, because he blamed, and not just him, I'm sure other people blamed all the problems of East Cleveland on the House of Wills. They blamed it on that property. All the murders, all the drug addictions, all the drive-bys was because of the House of Wills. So it was this epicenter, or this beacon of evil that was, kind of overlooking the community, the neighborhood, and it was making all this dark energy. Now, don't get me wrong, I know there's dark energy in that building. I've seen it. I've been there. I've seen what it's done to other people, including myself. As far as making East Cleveland what it is, I can't, account for that. But
Yeah.
I can tell you there is something bad there. It's something where, I don't want to go back if I ever did. I did go back one time since then, about a year after that, but I didn't investigate. I was just in Cleveland at the time. I was passing through Cleveland, and got invited to come back, and it literally took me about a half hour before I walk in the building. Like, I sat in the vehicle like, do I want to do this? And I only went as far as the front foyer, and I didn't go
Yeah.
any further than that. There was, it was during the day and there was people there. So that was it. That was the extent of my return. So yeah, it's a crazy place. It really is.
That just sounds terrifying. That,
It is. It's a living night.
it's,
Yeah.
ugh, I can't imagine. And like, I just feel like, it's funny because I just had a Bishop James Long on here, and one of the things that he said, and it's so simple, but he was like, if you go looking kind of for evil, like, don't be surprised if you find it. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand the dangers of places like this. You have a lot of and it's not to say that this is a bad thing, because obviously I think it's great that the supernatural community is coming to light and it's becoming more popular and people are more believing than they were, I would say. But you have a lot of dabbling and amateurs and people who will march right into a place like that and think that they can conquer the world, and then kind of get their ass handed to them, and then it's like, or even worse, they could end up in a really bad spot, maybe even death. And so like that kind of stuff is terrifying, especially, I honestly did not really know about this place until I started kind of diving into you a little bit more. And the more that I read about it, I was like, people really, like, I hope that they know that this is like not something to be played with. Because
Yeah, well, I got a lot of people who ask me, like when I go to do like appearances and events, and it'll come up about the House of Wills, and they'll ask, "How do you get there? Who do I reach out to?" I said, "You don't go there. You don't. You're not ready for that. I wasn't ready for it. I'd been doing this for 8 or 10 years at the point. You're not ready for it, and honestly, I don't think anybody ever will be ready for it. It's not one of those kind of locations that you just want to go. Would you okay, if you want to, let's say if you want a free trip to Afghanistan, would you go? No. You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't go to the House of Wills
no.
if you can help it, unless you think that you got what it takes. Go for it. I
I'm like, I feel like you can be very humbled.
it humbled me. It made me.
Yeah.
It made me. Okay, when I left there, within a month of me leaving there, I found God really quick. Like I was never like I always believe in God and Jesus and in Yeshua and everything, but I was not like a guy who did prayers and things of that nature. I was not that guy. I didn't talk to God. I didn't search him out. And I found him really quick after that location, because that's one of the things that probably really saved me from that location is finding him and praying every day. And I still do to this day, 2 or 3 times a day, and thank him for that, because it's what pulled me out of it. I've never felt anything like that, and I never want to feel it again. I've actually been thinking about going back, because I'll be in Cleveland on October 13th for a book signing. I was thinking about doing something there, but the more I think about it, I'm like, do I want to do something?
During October too.
Yeah. I was just like, and I know there's people who'll come. I know there are people who want to come, and like, but is it worth it? Is it worth me going back there? And even the publishing company is like, they want me to go back and like possibly do a sequel at some point and write about it. And I'm like, I just don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for it. I don't know if I want that. But we'll see. We'll see.
Do you mind me asking, what was one of the first things that happened that kind of notified you, like red flags? I think I brought something home with me.
Well, it's all in the book, but I'll give you a little tidbit. What really set me off that something wasn't right was the first day. Well, besides what happened to me there, which is in the book, it's crazy. But like all these darker type hauntings, or you want to call them demonic, whatever, you don't know something's happening until it's too late.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know. Like you'll go to, like, people think it's just going to jump out at you and say, "Oh, I'm a demon," but it doesn't do that. If it's a true demonic haunting, by the time you find out, nine times out of 10, it's too late. It's already, because they're very, like, these the demonic type stuff is very, it's patient. It doesn't know time like we do.
Yeah.
So it could take its time, and it could take years, months, weeks, whatever. What really set me off is the day I, like, all the way back from the location, besides of the stuff that happened there, it felt like the ride back with me and my friend Keith, who went with me, he's in the book, that something was in the back seat with us. And it wasn't just me that's feeling, I could tell he was feeling it too. And it felt like a child. It was weird, but not like
Ooh.
It was like I just kept picturing a child. That's all I could say. But when I got home, like I was so like beat and tired. I actually took a nap on a couch the first day back. And I think what really kind of like set off that something was going on was um trying to think what I should tell you, not to give away too much. The flies.
Okay.
I was in my garage, and it was the same. It was the second day I was back. I was in my garage and just felt off. I really felt off. And I'm never being in my garage, and I've never had a problem with bugs or anything. And I was getting ready. I wanted to go out, and for some reason, it was hell bent on cleaning my gutters. Whatever. I don't know why. And I'm like I got to clean my gutters. And I'm like, okay. So I'm in my garage, and I hear this buzzing sound. And I'm thinking I have a refrigerator in my garage. I'm at this point, I'm thinking it's the refrigerator. Something's wrong with the refrigerator. So I'm like, where the hell is this noise coming from? This buzzing noise. And I have two windows in my garage that overlook the front yard. And I happen to look over, and there's curtains on. At the time, there was curtains on. Now there's shades. I look over. I'm like, it sounds like it's coming. And I open the windows up. And this is something out of the Amityville Horror. There is literally about 200 to 300 black flies in my window on the inside.
Oh my gosh.
On the inside. And I've heard this before, about the flies and stuff and these demonic type hauntings or these, darker type hauntings. I'm like, there's no way I'm seeing this right now. This is not happening. This is something out of a movie. There's no way. So I open the garage door up and I get the bugs, I find some Raid and some bug spray. I spray all these damn things. I'm like, what the hell was that? And they're all dead on the floor. I come back in like a half hour later, after the place airs out, they're all dead on the floor. I sweep them up. I throw them away. I'm like, okay, I'm going crazy. It was just an infestation. I don't know. I get up the next day and come back, and there's about another 200 to 300 black flies in my
Are you
garage.
serious?
Yes,
That is
on the windows. There's no reason for them to be there. There's no trash cans. There's no nothing. I've never had a problem with flies since then, before that, or now. And it was just one of those things that kept going on. It happened like that for about 2 weeks, on and off. Where these
wow.
up where and at one point they were in this office I'm in right now doing this interview. I came in this office, like they weren't in the garage. One day I got up, I was like, oh shit, finally this, whatever it is, it's getting better. It's leaving. I come in this office, it's about 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're in this office on these windows that are right in front of me right now. Yeah. And this went on for almost 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I would be panicking. I would be like, oh my gosh.
I was. I'm trying to hide it from my family because I don't want them to
You can curse. It's fine. We're F-bomb friendly.
Okay. Yeah, I did. Trying to hide it from my family, because I didn't want them, getting worried and all this stuff. And it's just like it was crazy. I started reaching out to people in the community that I knew, who dealt with stuff like this before. And I don't think they realized how bad it was, the way I was explaining it, because I wasn't trying to, make it sound too bad. And it's just like it was a lot of reaching out to people to get rid of it, who I knew, different things, and praying, just find God. Yeah.
Now, was that your first and last time something ever followed you home, or have you had stuff follow you home after that experience?
Not to my knowledge, nothing has followed me home since, before that or since that. I mean, we did have one thing that happened here when we first moved in. We've been here for 12 years in this house, and this is way before that. I mean, we had it sounded like a little girl in the house, but the thing was, no one had ever passed away here. To our not, it's not, at least it's not recorded. And it was an older couple who owned the house, who I bought the house from. And they moved out. I think what it was, like a month after we moved out, the lady who owned the house, she had dementia, and she passed away literally about 3 or 4 weeks after she moved out. And I think it may have been her coming back as like a child form. And but she was only around for maybe a week or so. My kids were the first to hear her, then my wife, and then one morning, I'm like, you guys are crazy. There's nothing here. And one morning I was up getting ready for work one morning. I'll never forget, it's like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I walk out into my kitchen and I'm making breakfast. And I literally started walking over to like to the dining areas. And I hear a little girl singing and humming, just sitting in the corner. And I literally froze in my tracks. It sounded like, if you'd walk in on a child who's just playing, they got their back turned to you and they don't know you're there. That's what it sounded like. And it went on for about 7 or 8 seconds. And I'm just sitting here listening to this child playing that's not there. And that happened. But that's, yeah. And after that, never had a problem since. And that was 11 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good news. I was like, I don't know whether to say like, "Oh," or like, "Ooh."
Yeah.
That would freak me out.
Yeah, but being everything I've been through in the last, with doing this for so long and learning about different types of hauntings, I do believe that was her, the lady who owned the property, coming back in her happiest form as a child, because she had dementia. She didn't even know where she was half the time or who she was. So I think I went back to that, kind of, digressed back to a child, and that's where she, as she came back to, yeah.
But that's sweet though. At least there was like no malice intent. You know what I'm saying? It just kind of seems like she just kind of hung out and said her goodbyes and then kind of took off. So I mean, that's I'll say aw. I'll say aw to that one because that's
her
cute,
husband.
though.
Her and her husband built the house back in the late 70s. It was their baby. They did a lot here. And I think it was just her way of coming back to check out the place.
Oh, I love that. I do. I really love that. I think it's always nice when you have good spirits.
Yeah. She was a good person.
Good. So kind of the next thing that I wanted to dive into was I had wrote down a couple of locations that you had been to that like really interested me. The Anderson Hotel. That was a wild case. I was like just shocked. Just some of the things about like the some of the mattress, like everything just being left in place, including like some of the soiled sheets. And so I don't know if you want to talk about that a little.
Very sad. Anderson Hotel is one of those places that we got on a whim. It was Anderson Hotels in Kentucky, for people who don't know. And it's actually not open to the public anymore, so you really can't go there. I've had a lot of people ask me, how do you get there? I'm like, you can't. Unfortunately, they shut it down. It was only open for maybe 2-3 years at most. But I went there in the first year it was open. And Anderson Hotel, you can't even really call it a hotel. It's more like a flop house. Very seedy place that was closed down in either 1988 or 1989. Basically, the local community, local township shut it down because it had such a bad name. There was basically a flop house. People came there to do drugs and things of that nature. There were several suicides and drug overdoses, and apparently some murders in the building. And like I said, it says it's a hotel. It's only 2 stories tall. I mean, it's not a huge location, but I went there completely once again, like this place ain't nothing what they're saying it is. And I don't think anybody really at that point, besides for Nick Groff, had been there. And we went there not long after he was there. And we heard some of the things that happened to him while he was there. And we're like, oh, okay, whatever. And so we went, and long story short, the place, you walk in there, and what happened was back in the late 80s, when they shut this place down, they left everything in it. They left the couches, the beds. There was still sitting on the main desk when you walk in the front door, and they boarded it all up. They boarded the whole hotel up, the windows, the doors, everything. You couldn't even get in. So it was a sitting time capsule for 30 years almost. And they opened it back up. I think it was in 2014 or 2015. Some people bought the building and were trying to restore it, and they built the first level. They turned into a bakery, type place where you can buy food. And then the top floor was still the hotel, what was left of it, and everything was still in there. everything. So you go in there and there's this one room, there's still this mattress there that had the outline of the girl. She was either 18 or 19 years old, who apparently he either committed suicide or was murdered. I don't think they really know, but she cut her wrist
Oh
and
my
bled out on
gosh.
the bed. And there's still this outline of her body on the bed from the blood stains that had sat there for a day or so. It's still in the building. It was still there. And it's just like, that's very surreal to see. Like, they didn't even throw it out. Like, you know, they didn't they didn't even flip it over, you know, to hide it. It was just still there. And like, there was, you know, bathtub, you know, and so what happened was, like, the owners brought in some experts with luminol and things of that nature to test it all to make sure it was really blood. And it was all real blood in the bathtubs. There was like, it looked like this one bathtub, like someone was murdered in it and like dismembered. There was so much blood in it.
Oh my
But
gosh.
this is the place where, and people say, like, what's the craziest thing that ever happened to you? Well, I can say House of Wills definitely is probably the most craziest, but this is the one I still scratch my head on. We were doing, like, the place was it was active, but I wouldn't say it was crazy. I mean, it wasn't like over the top until about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So there's this one side of the hotel, like, you could tell, like, something's not right there, especially these couple rooms. So we go over there. So let's go to this side of the hotel. We really haven't done much there that night. We were kind of avoiding it, to be honest with you. It was very ominous. So we go over there and we're like, we're going to wrap it up around 3 or 4 and get out of here. So let's go over there. So we're over there and we're doing, they're running an Echo Box. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's basically like a phone app. And it's
Okay.
like,
Similar to like a spirit box. Because I know sometimes they
yeah,
have spirit box like a necro. What is it
well,
called?
yeah, it's a spirit box that's, you know, you can download the app Echo Box, which it's like the original. It was very good at the time. I don't know about them now. Haven't used one in years, but they were using the Echo Box and they had the speaker set up, so it was pretty loud, and we were asking these weird questions, and like there's 4 of us in the room, and it's like everybody's getting kind of weirded out. And like, in the guy who's behind me, Keith, he had his camcorder, and he's like, man, he said, I just feel weird. I said, what's up? And he said, and he jumps. He's like, dude, something just felt like something bit me. I was like, what are you talking about? So he turns around, and down on his calf, in between his calf and his thigh, there's bite marks. It look like human bite marks. Well, okay, crazy, whatever. Yeah, that's crazy. And he's like, dude, I gotta get out of this room. I said, we'll definitely get out of the room. And I said, let's start wrapping this up, because the 2 girls were with us, were part of the team, were acting really weird, and they started bickering. So I was like, you guys gotta get out of here. Let's go. Let's pack it up and go, because this is crazy. And then all of a sudden, this Echo Box, which it can't do. There's no way possible this thing could do this. It's not set up for that. It started reciting the Lord's Prayer backwards.
What?
But we didn't pick up on it at first. Like, there would be a number in it, like it'd be 10, and it would start saying the Lord's Prayer. Like, is that the Lord's Prayer? But is it saying backwards? And then it would be a 9, and it kept doing this for about 4 or 5 minutes, where it got down to like 6. You hear the number 6, and then you hear the number 5 and a 4. And it's just me and the one girl in the room, and she's in in the corner in a rock chair. I said, hey, you got to get up, let's go. And she was acting really weird. And we did 2, and then she kept looking over my left shoulder into this doorway that led into another room that was in the room. And she just kept looking over there. I said, what are you looking at? And I kept looking. It's pitch black in this place. I have a flashlight down in front of me. And next thing I know, I hear boom, 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 something running toward me from my left-hand side. I stand up out of the chair I'm sitting in, and next thing I know, I looked in front of me, and there's like a flash of energy that basically threw me across, probably 6 or 7 feet across the room. The chair I was sitting in kind of followed with me, and I landed on it and basically just smashed the chair. It was flattened underneath of me. It was an old like kitchen chair. I mean, it wasn't that great anyway, but I laid the chair out and I was on top of it. So whatever this burnt, and I can't explain it. It wasn't like I felt wasn't like I felt hands on me or anything like that.
Like
It
kind
was,
of like a potato gun motion, like a big blast of air
yeah,
type
it was like
thing.
blast of energy, and I saw a flash of light almost. And next thing I know, I'm looking up, at the ceiling, and I'm reaching for my flashlight because it's dark in there. You can't see anything. I'm reaching, and I could hear the guy Keith, who I was with, running down the hallway because he heard me hit the floor. And he comes running into the room as I grab the flashlight. And he's like, "What? What the hell was that? What was that noise?" He sees me laying on the ground. I get up. And he said, "What happened?" I explained to him. So that was, yeah, that's, and then after that we left. We grabbed everything, got out to the cars, and we just left. We didn't even say goodbye or anything. It was just like, we're going, we're done.
Yeah.
But that was the one where I had hands laid on me. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I got the chillies just when you were talking about the Lord's Prayer and how that started happening.
Right.
And then the fact that like I feel like just the part even where you said you heard something running up and like that would have freaked me out. I would have had to have changed my pants. I would have shit myself. I would be in bad condition. Like that I think scares me more than the Will's house. That freaks me out. That is so scary.
Yeah.
How do you come back from something like that? Like I always watch these shows and I'm like,
Well, I actually went back like 2 months later because I wanted to recreate what happened. Like I was like, there's no way this happened. And there's more to it that happened. There's some stuff I left out that led up to it, and there's some stuff after that happened. But I went back, but this time I took different people with me just to see if it was like one of the people there who was setting this type of energy off. And quite honestly, we didn't have like almost anything happen the second time we went. We went all the way back. I was like, I have to go back to this place and figure out what the hell is going on. And now we did do some history on the building, and we found out the caretaker or the guy who was running the hotel for the owners at the time, he was into black magic. He was doing black magic. We'd actually found the second time we went there, we started looking around and like at some of the old furniture and like pictures and mirrors and stuff on the wall, and we found sigils that were written on the back of them from what his time there. So he was doing black magic and things in the building. This was, supposedly this was documented. We started finding, getting people, were talking about it and seeing some of the history of it. And he's supposedly very abusive person, very shady. And they think that he was probably, getting sexual favors for allowing people to stay there. And he was abusing people and stuff of that nature. And he apparently
very
died.
dark.
Yeah, he apparently died there too. He committed suicide toward the end. So we
God.
think some of that stuff was probably him. Yeah.
That sounds like it. Like I was not expecting you to say that he committed suicide. I mean, that just makes it even 10 times worse.
Yeah. He was
Wow.
supposedly, from what the rumor was, he was trying to turn himself into a demon. He wanted to be a demon. So he was doing rituals and the higher and lower keys of Solomon, which if you don't know what you're doing with that type of stuff, it's dangerous. It's super dangerous, period. But it's super dangerous when you don't know what the hell you're doing and you're messing with that type of stuff. And apparently that's what he was doing. And it didn't turn out good for him. Yeah.
Oh man, that's creepy. That's really creepy. I didn't know all of that. Just kind of looked it up and delved into just the history of it and stuff, but I didn't know that. So that's crazy.
I would love to write a book about that place someday. Just because, for one thing, it's like it's not there anymore. Like it's there, but you can't get into it. And it's at least House of Wills is still accessible for some people to get into. If they want to get there, if you really want to put yourself through that, and if Eric will actually allow you in the building, that's another thing. It's another factor. But Anderson, being that they shut it down, they were having so many problems with people getting hurt there. Doing paranormal these type of because we found out that when Groff was there, he apparently had some of the same things happen to him that we had. Like his cameraman actually got the same bite marks that my guy who was with me got on the back of his leg, which was one of the things that happened to us. So yeah, I mean, there's supposedly people who were getting hurt doing the paranormal events and, doing the investigations. So that's why they shut it down. Yeah.
That is, you have been to some really like really, really scary places
I
and
have.
like live to tell the tale. And I mean, that's bold. I give you kudos because I mean, it does take a lot to scare me. Like I joke, but there's been certain, like I've had my own paranormal experiences. And it's funny because you were talking about Gettysburg. Me and my husband we're 50-50. So he gets into the history aspect of things. He's the history buff. I'm all paranormal.
Right.
So I love looking into stuff and researching history. And so, I'll sit down in a little Starbucks and I'm like, oh, what's stuff that's, not like notably known here and what can I get into? And so, and then he'll be out on the battlefield. He's like, oh, the regiment's here. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's nice. I'm like, I just want to know, is this
Yeah.
fact or fiction? But we had a really, really scary experience at the Gettysburg Hotel. So I kind of wanted to pick your brain because you said Gettysburg that you've been there a few times, right?
Oh, many, many, many times. Yes.
So what is your favorite place in Gettysburg that you
Well,
fancy?
I love the battlefield. I mean, going out there, before before 10 o'clock is when you have to be off the battlefield. So you can go out there when it's dark. Had some amazing experiences out there, with my wife and myself. Um, we would call some crazy EVPs and things of that nature. But my favorite place in Gettysburg is actually right outside of Gettysburg, which is the Cashtown Inn.
Hashtown, and yes, we went
Yeah,
there for drinks.
yeah. We actually I've stayed there probably 7 or 8 times over the years. One time we've loved it so much where I actually rented out the whole place for almost a week because we loved it.
Really?
Took my wife, took my mom and my one son there, and we stayed there for about 5 days. Yeah, just bouncing back and forth to different rooms and staying in them. And we've never been disappointed at the Cash Town. It's like we always get some amazing experiences there. This little girl who supposedly had passed away there during the turn of the century around the 1900s. They've actually captured pictures of her. One picture that was pretty wild that I've never seen before. That they showed me of this little girl. There was actually a photographer there who was just taking historical pictures for, I think it was maybe for their menu or something. And they'd hired him to come in and he was taking pictures. Oh no, he was taking pictures for their websites, what it was. And he was standing in the doorway where the dining area is, like at the front door, taking a picture inside where the bar is. And there used to be a mirror, I don't know if it's still there, hanging like on the wall next to the fireplace. And as he's taking this picture and he gets it developed, he sends it to him like, hey, who's this little girl? Because she wasn't there when I was taking the picture. And there's this little girl standing behind him in the doorway in period dress, holding a cat, plain as day. It's not like you could see through her or anything. It looked like she looked solid, just standing there. And it was so weird. And there had been rumors of this little girl who haunted the location. This is middle of the day, people in and out of the building, but there's this little girl in period dress, maybe I say 8 years old, 7 years old, in the picture. And we've had all kinds of experiences there with phantom footsteps, EVPs, things getting moved. I sat there and watched the last time I was there about 5 or 6 years ago. We had sat a dog ball, one of these big heavy rubber dog balls on a windowsill, trying to get it to move all night, wouldn't move. Next morning we get up, we're getting dressed to go down and eat breakfast about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. And we're just getting dressed. We're not doing anything, not paying attention to anything. We just woke up, my wife and myself, and this ball shot across the room right in front of us, right between both of us. So we've had all kinds of stuff happen there. It's an amazing location.
I love that you're like, I love because I talked to John Bullard and his wife, and I love power couples in like the paranormal world. Like I think it's so cool. I'm like, if my husband wasn't don't tell him I said this, I call him a baby back bitch all the time because I'm like, I always tease him. I'm like, come on, because ever since we had our little our Gettysburg hotel experience, we literally left in the middle of the night and drove 2 hours to my mother-in-law's because
Oh,
it
geez.
was it was scary. And I was like, nope, I don't like this feeling. Like it feels like something very dark. And I'm like, I just want to leave. And I'm pretty sure I left clothing there. Like I just swooped whatever I could up and we were out, and they were looking at us like we had 5 heads. I was like, we'd like to check out. They're like, you can't check out until like, I was like, that's fine, just take my key and I'll call tomorrow. Like,
Right.
but I love seeing like couples in like paranormal investigations. Like I just think it's neat to have something that you guys can do together. And I keep trying to talk my husband into it, and he's like, Morgan, he's like, I'm not doing any of that spirit box stuff. I'm not going like paranormal investigating with you. And I'm like, I just like want to learn, and I want to see these places, and I want to know, not the darker ones, but just like,
Yeah.
I've had experiences my whole life. I've always been very sensitive. So to have like, to go to some of these places and see what I pick up and just kind of, respectfully learn, this skill set that you guys have and what you kind of do, like, it's just really neat. And to have your wife a part of that, like it's like having your best friend, doing something that you love with you all the time. So that's really
Yeah.
neat.
But it's definitely fun when you get to do stuff, together, because we usually don't.
Yeah.
Even when I'm traveling, doing events and in these appearances and stuff, very seldom does she get to come. Like she did get to go with me back in December to a place up in Philadelphia. I did close, but before that, it'd been like 2 years before that, and
Okay.
hasn't been anything since. So we're going back to Gettysburg, October. Don't quote me on this year. 27th to 28th of this year, I have an event there. So I told her to make sure she schedules herself off to be able to come to the event. So
Oh, that's fun. So is it a private event, or is it something that you can get
no,
tickets
all
for?
mine are ones these companies sell tickets for. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
It's
cool. You might have to send me the link for that so that I can feature it
yeah,
with the podcast. Because I mean, Matt will literally, if I even mention the G word, he's like, all right, let's pack the car. Let's just hit the road. So like, he could get his fill of history, and then maybe I can come and kind of see
yeah.
you speak. That would be awesome.
Yeah, actually, it's coming to a Halloween event. They're doing like a 70s 80s costume party type thing. So
Oh,
it's still
cool.
cool. Yeah, be really cool.
Okay, cool. So, I like to ask this question to a lot of the people that I have on my podcast, because I like to just see like different answers and perspectives. Um, Assuming, because you've been to a lot of locations, I'm assuming that you've been to a lot of the notable locations, such as like Amityville or like Penhurst Asylum, Eastern State, um, Villisca Axe Murder House, things like that. What has probably been your favorite, more like famous haunting case?
Famous location that's
Yeah,
well known, Waverly Hills.
that I've heard crazy things about the body shoot in that place.
Yeah, Waverly Hills is my probably when it comes to famous locations that people would recognize on TV and have been done. Definitely Waverly. I mean, I've done Penhurst, I've done Eastern States, I've done Moundsville and Mansfield and all those places, but Waverly was like, it was just that place. It really was. It was amazing. Had some great experiences down in the chute, like you were just talking about. All over that building. It didn't matter if it was night or the middle of the day. We were having some crazy experiences when we were shooting there. Yeah.
Wow. I've heard it's massive. I've heard it's like
And
when you walk up to it, it is just like
I was
towering.
we were there for a week filming, and I still don't think I went into every spot in that building.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how is it as far as like intact? Like, I mean, it looks like it's still pretty in decent condition.
It's in actually like the back. See what everybody sees on TV and pictures. That's the back of the building. The back.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone thinks that's the front. It's not. That's actually the back of the building. The
Okay.
front of the building actually has like doors, and it looks kind of like a medieval castle almost. There's gargoyles and all this stuff. They've done a lot to the building, and like there's also like a part of the building you do not see. It's so big, like you just see that back part. Well, there's actually a whole nother run that goes down the side of the building like it's 3 or 4 stories high as well, and you don't
Okay.
see. And that part's all like enclosed. It's got windows and doors. They actually have it set up for a haunted house all the time. Like they run these Halloween type things there. So you have all like the props and stuff in that part of the building, down in the basement in the front corridor.
I
But
didn't even know that they did that. I
yeah,
thought it was just kind of like a lot of investigations take place there. I didn't know that they kind of do that.
yeah, we were there, we were filming there, and they were just getting ready that year to start. We actually just left the weekend. They started their Halloween event, but yeah, it's all set up. It's got caskets and all kinds of crazy stuff there. But yeah, it's clean. It's well put together. Now the part that you see, the guys you know the stuff you see the pictures of, that's all open. Like there's no windows, there's no doors or anything. Like it's just open. So if it's winter, it's cold up there. Like it's all open. Like there's no windows, nothing. It's just open rooms.
Wow.
And that's where all like the really amazing, cool activity happens up there, on those 4 levels. It's insane. Like it's just you're seeing things like, did I just see that? Did I just see a man walk in front of me dressed like from the 1930s? Did I just see that? It's crazy. It's probably the most active location, like where you're seeing these shadow figures, or I call them shadow anomalies because they all don't look like figures. Some of them are just black masses, just going from room to room, back and forth, even during the day, middle of the day. It's just like a busy hospital that's still running.
That's really cool. Kind of like
Yeah,
frozen in time.
it is.
So
I mean,
you go ahead. Sorry.
it was so big, and during its day, it had its own zip code.
Wow.
People, like even the doctors and nurses that work there, they lived there. The orderlies, they all lived there because they had to. Because at that point with TB, if you were an orderly or a doctor or nurse, you probably had it also, or you were exposed to it, where you could give it to other people. So you had to live there. It had its own post office and everything. Yeah.
That's so like strange because like then you're like it's almost kind of I mean essentially kind of like you're condemned there. Like you can't like you kind of are like okay if you're gonna enter this place it's kind of an unsigned contract that you're most likely gonna die here. That's crazy.
Yeah, pretty much. And a lot of people did die there. I don't even know if they have the exact numbers. It was well over 50,000 people died there. Yeah, a lot of people died there. And some of the hospitals no longer there. Some of the property it had falling into disarray and it had been tore down. But the death tunnel, the death chute, or whatever you want to call it, it actually leads down to these old railroad tracks where they used to bring the train cars in. They'd load the bodies up on the train cars so no one saw them during the day, and they would take them out that way. It's that death tunnel is probably close to a football field long, if not longer.
It
Yeah,
looks really, really scary because it just like goes down to straight pitch
it takes
black.
forever to walk it. Like you're walking down, you feel like you're never getting to the end. It like just keeps going and going, and like coming back's worse because you're having to go back. Yeah, it's crazy.
I would be like, I am not physically fit enough to be doing this right now. I need to take a break halfway.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's a wild experience, and it was such a blessing and to go there, and a very honored to be able to film a TV show there. It was crazy.
That I mean, that sounds really cool. I've always, like I said, the body shoe always intrigued me because every show that I saw it on, it just looked so ominous. And again, I just like give you guys kudos because I'm like, I don't know that I could just like stare down into that and be like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna trek this for like I
Yeah,
don't even know how long miles. It seems like miles.
yeah. It's
Um,
a football field, so it's pretty deep. And it comes down to a dead end where there's 2 swinging doors that are all like welded shut and everything. But it's pretty wild. Yeah.
did you like feel anything like the energy? I'm sure the energy in there is it
Well, yeah.
buzzing, heavy?
Well, we heard like some of the craziest stuff when we were down there. I was down there with Kristen Lumen, and we were filming a scene down there. And at one point, something on like, so there's, you have on the, in the tunnel, you have the steps that are on the one side to the left, like if you're looking down it, and on the right side, it's probably about 4 to 5 foot wide, just straight concrete, like where they used to slide stuff down, the caskets and things, or the dollies, and you can do either or. And so I'm standing on like the ramp side, and Kristen's kind of standing on the stairs, like on like a little ledge. And at one point, like we set up these sensors, these motion detectors on the stairs. Like we put one probably 30 or 40 feet up, another one, and then we had some EDIs set up in between. And at one point, we hear something run up the steps, and it's setting all the sensors off. It went past us, and you could hear it like do 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 do, and all the way up to the top where we had the last sensor set up, set them all off, and then came back do 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 do, do and set them all off again.
What? That would be like, I don't know if I'd be scared or if I would be like enamored, like just standing there like, wow, okay, like that
Yeah, no,
was.
I was definitely enamored. I mean, I've been so much crap that didn't bother me. That was awesome. I like seeing that, like, because I asked, one of them, I can't remember if it was her or myself. We asked for something, hey, if you're here, go up and down. We got these set up. It did it for us. It was like on command. Like, okay,
That's
boom, boom, boom.
intelligent.
Yeah, it's like it let us know, hey, I'm here. I'm doing my song and dance for you. It's great. Yeah, it was pretty wild. Yeah.
So since you kind of touched upon equipment a little bit, I definitely want to pick your brain. Like what are some of your favorite strategies or equipment that you use when investigating? I know kind of like the newer thing that a lot of people like is like the spirit box. I forget the name of it, but it's where they kind of like take out your senses. It's like blindfold. They put the earphones on you and kind of ask questions, and then you answer.
Well,
I forget what that's called. But
there's a couple different names for it. There's the Delco experiment, and there's I forget what the other one they call it. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. But the Delco is basically the same thing. You put the noise canceling headphones on, these goggles on so you can't see, and then there's a spirit box or echo box, whatever, talking to you that you can hear, and you're answering it out loud, or you're not, something like that, to that nature. But when it comes to equipment, I'm like, I try to stay more to the scientific side of things. I like using a good camcorder. I use a body cam a lot for video. A good audio recorder like a Zoom I use for to pick up EVPs and things of that nature. I use the EDI, which is an all-in-one tool. Basically, it does. Matter of fact, I got one right here.
oh yeah, we get to actually see one up close.
Yeah. Well, I use this at my events and stuff. So you got this right here. Basically, this is body cam I use.
Okay.
Same thing, your first responders and police, everything you use. Just turn it on. I've caught some of my best evidence with that thing. It's where
That's smart.
That's where I caught the full body apparition in Alaska.
Wow.
EDI, which is this. It's basically an all-in-one tool. So that's what it looks like. It's got a little slot up top here for your memory card to go in, so you can pull it out, put it on your laptop, and kind of track what you captured. So you have, it's a recording device. So you got temperature, decrease, increase, you have pressure, humidity. Down here, you have vibration, which is GFO basically, and this is your EMF. You can use them all at once, or you can use them individually, separately. So, when this thing's going off, it's really well shielded. So walkie-talkies, cell phone, like text and stuff of that nature, do not set this off like it will like a REM pod or something of that nature. This thing is like foolproof, and it's very awesome to have, because when you're getting like pressure hits or the EMF for no reason, quite possibly you're in contact with something.
That's really neat. I've never heard about that or even seen that before. So thanks
Really?
for teaching me about that. Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
But it might also be my lack of knowledge, because I'm just good old like I know about like dowsing rods, I know about EMF, I know an okay amount, but things have changed.
Yeah, a lot of things have changed over the last 5 or 6 years, especially. We actually introduced these on our show for the first time, and they really blew up. People loved them and started using them. Like everywhere I go, like all these different appearances and events I go to now. It's so weird because the stuff you used to see 4 or 5 years ago, just REM pods and K2s and things of that nature, the old school stuff. Like you go now, it's all you see the EDIs, you see body cams, you see like the Zoom recorders. People are actually leaning more towards the scientific end of the business, which is nice to see because you're cutting out all that, possible contamination with equipment that's, not to say it's bad, but it's more for shits and giggles.
Yeah, more accurate results that you're getting with that. I mean, it just kind
Yeah.
of undisputable, which I think is really important, especially in the supernatural community, because there's so many skeptics and, oh, well, that could be picking up this or so. I mean, that's really cool. I'm gonna have to look more into that.
Well, yeah, and the nice thing about that piece of equipment right there is if you're getting, you're hearing footsteps or you're getting movement, you're hearing it with your own ear and stuff, and you're getting hits on this, say you're getting pressure hits or EMF, you can actually take the memory card out when you're done and match it up to correlate with the experiences you were having. So when you put that on your laptop or your computer, it gives you a graph. It tells you the time and when it's hitting and what's hitting. Like, my humidity was here, my pressure was here, my EMF was here. It's like a graph, like a heart chart almost.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, wow. I feel like I need to definitely delve more into like investigational tools because I am behind the ball.
Well, I mean, yeah, I always tell people too. I mean, the only thing you really need is yourself and a good piece of a good recorder, like an audio recorder, or even like some of the cheaper ones are not that bad. And a video camera. Really, it's all you need. You don't need to go. People don't need to go and blow hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars on all this equipment that half the time you don't use. You'll get it and it'll break, or you don't understand why it's giving these false readings and things of that nature, and you end up just throwing it under your desk. Like here, where I have all this equipment that I don't use anymore, I show up to an investigation with a backpack. That's it.
I mean, that's pretty good though. You're working efficiently,
Yeah.
condensing.
Right.
So I know we're kind of going on an hour and a half now, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but just because it piqued my interest, I was just curious, what were you doing? What brought you to Alaska?
We were investigating for the show. We filmed there. We were there for 15 days, I think it was 14 days, something like that. And we got called there by a client, a young lady who was trying to purchase a hotel in Haines, Alaska, or was thinking about purchasing a hotel, and she worked there. Presently, she worked there at the time, and they were not just her, but people who were working at this hotel were having all kinds of paranormal experiences and seeing things and hearing things. And we were lucky enough to capture it on film. I actually captured it with my body cam on the third floor of the Halsingland Hotel. I was wearing a body cam much like that one, and heard something running in the hallway toward me. I didn't realize I'd captured it at the time. I totally forgot I had the body cam on. And when I went back to review the footage from the body cam, I actually captured this apparition coming out and was basically standing maybe 2 feet in front of me. And the second time, maybe 30 seconds later, he came out and he was standing 5 or 6 feet away. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, Alaska is a very different, I mean, I guess just because when I think of a lot of the hauntings and stuff that take place or supernatural activity, I've never really I mean, obviously Alaska is no different than anywhere else, but you don't hear much about Alaska or like any kind of like major notable locations, or at least I haven't. So
It's
I
a
thought
whole
that was
world. I mean, we went there. They don't like this the town we went to is called Haines, Alaska. So basically, you fly into Juneau, Alaska, which is the capital of Alaska, and then you have to take a boat ride for about 3.5 hours to this place called Haines, which was part of the Klondike Rush back in the 1800s. It was so lawless at the time that it was and so bad they had to put a military camp there to keep the peace.
wow.
And so there's a lot of bad things that went down there. Things we probably will never know. Besides for the people, starvation and people, dying of, the elements and things of that nature. But murders and things. But we got called there because they were having paranormal activity. The whole town was, but especially this hotel is what they really focused on. Was the Halsey land. Yeah.
Wow, that reminds me a little bit of like almost like Shepherdstown, like how it's like town affected. I think it was Shepherdstown, right? Or
yeah, Shepherdstown. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
about it. But yeah, we had a place in Arizona. It was like Shepherdstown. That was more like Shepherdstown, Arizona, because it was the whole town that called us in. It was actually the Chamber of Commerce called us in, and they had us do a town hall meeting with the town, and like 150 people. They had so many people show up in this town, which I don't know where they all came from, because the town was probably no bigger than 50 buildings, 50 houses, 50 buildings. Literally, there was like 170 people showed up, and they could only put 120 people in the church we were in because of fire code. But it was we were there for over 2 weeks filming in Clifton, Arizona. That was crazy. That was in the middle of the desert. Like you had to fly into Tucson, and you basically drove about 3 hours to a hotel, and then your hotel was an hour and 20 minutes from the actual location. You had to drive every day back and forth to the middle of the desert. Yeah.
Wow. I have heard, I had a gentleman on who lives in Teos, New Mexico. And he was kind of telling me a little bit about kind of just that stretch there, of how it's just so plagued with just everything from UFOs to
New Mexico,
supernatural. Yeah.
yeah, New Mexico. We filmed in New Mexico too, in Fort Stanton, and Fort Stanton is actually where there was especially a UFO crash there too around the same time Roswell, which Roswell is about 50 miles from Fort Stanton, and that whole area. Like we were out there, and we were having all kinds of crazy stuff happen. Like you look up at the skies at night, and you're seeing shit that like that's not a satellite, and that's not a plane. Like there was like all kinds of anomalies going on, like light anomalies in the sky. And that's one of the things. It's crazy out there because it minds you kind of like it was just this smorgasbord of everything. It was like there had been the paranormal part of it with the spirits and everything. There is these reports of these Wendigos, whatever you want to call them, these shapeshifters. There's the UFO thing going on out there. Plus, you have the whole Native American background because it was all Apache and Mescalero territory, and they're still kind of running things out there. And then you have the fort was settled right in the middle of it all, and it was all in Lincoln, the Lincoln County Wars. Billy the Kid. That was actually the if you watch my one scene where we're filming, and I have this dry erase board behind me on the one episode, and kind of pointing out the different locations we drawn in the fort where we're going to investigate. That was actually Billy the Kid's jail cell I was in.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's crazy. You get to see some really, really cool places. I'm like, I'm gonna live vicariously through you.
Yeah, I've been very blessed to see some really cool stuff. Let me tell you, it was exciting.
Well, I mean, like I said, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I absolutely enjoyed having you on. I love hearing all these stories, and just super humbled and grateful that you were able to come on and give, a little time to a little podcast like me. But I appreciate it, because I just feel like everything that you've said today has been so profound. And I think the listeners are they're gonna love it, because you had some really cool stories. And I'm probably not gonna sleep tonight just thinking about you being like blasted through the air, and like I'm like, that story is gonna stick with me. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
it was really good having you on.
thank you. I'm honored to be on, and I wish you the best with your show, and hopefully I'll see you at one of my events.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also, I mean, if I can give a little plug, yeah, like I said, we were talking about the Horrors of the House of Wills. It's out for pre-order right now. You can buy it in advance. It's available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Books a Million, and books.org right
Okay.
now. And September 8th, it's the launch date, release date, and it's available in bookstores everywhere, September 8th.
Yeah, because I think I saw on Amazon it said pre-order.
Yeah.
But just a little tidbit that I kind of like, the little excerpt that I kind of peeked into, it seems like a great book. So I'm
It is.
eager.
I'm very excited. I'm very, humbled by it, and I can't wait to get it out there for the people to read, to be honest with you, because I'm very proud of the book. I don't consider myself an author in any way, but I guess apparently I am now. I don't know. Maybe this will be the first of many. I don't know yet. We'll see. Because it took.
I was gonna say anticipate it, because I feel like if this one takes off, everybody's gonna want to pick your brain from here on out, and they're gonna be like, "All right, when's number 2 coming out?"
That's the only reason I wrote the book, is because so many people were picking my brain about the House of Wills, because I talked about it so much on different shows. Because you always get asked, what's the craziest location you ever been? And I always say the House of Wills, and where people were starting to ask me, you just should write a book, and I'm like, nah. And then like I said, I did. I always say I'm not going to do something, and I do it, and so I wrote the book, and here it is. So 2 years later, after writing it.
There you go. Listen,
Yeah.
like you said before, you just got to go for it. You just got to do it.
Yeah.
So you're doing the damn thing, and it's gonna be great. But yeah, since we're technically neighbors, maybe we'll have you on the podcast again, because I'm sure that you have stories to last a lifetime.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
after I'm going to England in September, so I'm going to be investigating over there. So probably after that, see how good that was. That's on my bucket.
Oh, we'll definitely be anticipating. Now that I know that, now you're definitely going to have to come back on and tell us about it. Because my grandma, she's straight off the boat from Europe. She's from Wales. And I think that's why I got into the supernatural like I did. Because, over in Europe, I mean, they have century-old tales, and they're very superstitious. There's a lot of supernatural phenomenon going on over there. So I'll be eager to hear it.
Yeah, so it's there, and it's real. So yeah, I feel you there. My family's Scots Irish, so, and Cherokee, so I got a little bit of everything in me. But yeah, I can't wait to get over there and check out England and see what it's all about. I'm going to be in London and be in York and a couple other places for the week I'm there. So
that's gonna be awesome, and enjoy the food. Food. Gotta have some fish and chips. They're like the greatest. So I've heard. I haven't gotten to enjoy them yet, but I've heard everything's fabulous. So okay, well, thank you so much. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Enjoy your trip to Europe, and thanks for being on again.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're honored. So I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you, Marty.
Okay, bye.